Remembrance Day is coming up, so today I'm going to teach you how to make a doodle poppy wreath with a message on the inside that means something to you or means something for Remembrance Day. So I'm actually going to show you how to draw lots of different kinds of poppies depending on which way they're facing, and some different ways to make doodle leaves and poppy buds, and then you get to design where they all go and how they fit on your wreath. You also get to choose the message that goes on the inside. And you can color this in lots of different ways. So for this one, I used watercolor paint. I painted both the poppies and the leaves. For this one, I just did the poppies because I wanted it to be kind of like black and white with a pop of red. And for this one, I used markers. Another cool thing is if you know how to handwrite, you could even handwrite your special message to go inside your Remembrance Day wreath. So stick around. You're going to need a scrap piece of paper for our doodles to practice, and then a good copy paper to make your finished work of art on. And you can either cut it out after or leave it on that piece of paper. Up to you. Lots of ways to customize this work of art. So first I'm going to teach you how to make these doodle poppies facing different directions, so facing up or facing down or facing the side or facing straight on. And then I'll also show you how to do some doodle leaves and doodle poppy buds. And then you are going to get to arrange them on a wreath so that it all flows together and looks natural and beautiful. At the end, you'll get to choose one word or one message that has meaning to you to write in the middle for Remembrance Day. And then we'll get to paint. So we're going to start by making our doodles. Grab a whiteboard or a plain piece of paper to do some practice doodles on. Okay, so first we're going to practice drawing some poppies. Poppies usually have 4 round petals. So I'm going to start by making a poppy that's facing me. So 1 big round petal, 2, 3, 4. If that was a little tricky for you to draw, you can also do 4 circles, all kind of meeting together. For the center of our poppy, we're going to add a circle first. And you can color it in now if you'd like, or you can just wait to color on our good copy. And then to add a little bit more texture, we're going to add, I'm not really sure what the word is for these, but this little detail to show that there's some texture to the inside of our poppies. So I'm drawing a short line out and adding it with a little circle. Short line out, end it with a little circle. You can have as many or as few as you'd like. You can play around to see what you think looks good. Just makes our poppy look a little bit more realistic. There we go. So that is 2 different examples of a poppy facing you. Now here's what you would see if a poppy was facing up. I'm going to start with a round, kind of like a smile shape. This is for the bottom of our poppy. And then on the top, I'm going to make 2 or 3 bumps to show the petals. So it looks like they are curling up. Just like that. If you want, you could continue those lines to the bottom, but I kind of like it like that. And another thing to make it look like poppies is we're going to add what's left of the poppy bud on the bottom. So I'm going to put a circle on the bottom. And I'm going to make these little leaves kind of poking out. So they're kind of like organic shaped triangles where they start thick and then get a little bit thinner at the ends, just to make it look more realistic. If you look at pictures of real poppies, this is what they have on the bottoms, connected to the stem. You could draw the stem if you'd like. All right, now poppies have very thin stems, so they often kind of, what's the word for it, curve and twirl. Sometimes they flop over. So the next poppy we're going to draw is one that's upside down. It's pretty much exactly like this, but we're going to flip it upside down. So I'm going to start with this shape, like a rainbow. Then I'm going to add my 2 or 3 curved lines to show the petals. If I want them to go a little bit further, I can. And this time I'll add my bud on the top part here with those little leaves. Sometimes the leaves stretch onto the flower, and sometimes they curl back off. All right, and the same thing if you wanted to draw a flower that was sideways, you would just start with the shape going the other way. So maybe like a C shape, some bumps, and then you'd add your little bulb over here. That's how we can draw some poppies. Now let's practice drawing some leaf shapes. Leaves are rounded on one side and then it comes to a point on the other side, so just like that. And leaves can be all different shapes and sizes, so don't worry if yours looks a little different. Leaves can be wider than that. Leaves can be skinnier than that. There's lots of different types of leaves. A leaf on a poppy actually has kind of a zigzagged edge to it, so if you want to make it really realistic, to make our leaves a bit more interesting, we want to add some detail on top. And there's lots of different ways to do it. To make your picture really interesting, I recommend that you try a couple different of these ways. So let's try on this first one, draw a line straight down from point to point. And then on one side, I'm going to add diagonal lines all the way down, just on one side. All right, let's try another design for leaves. Same thing, start with that straight line down. For this one, I'm going to draw diagonal lines coming in from both sides. You could even draw a couple extra lines, kind of making the ends look like lowercase y's. This is the most realistic way. If you really study a leaf, you'll see that pattern on there. Let's try another one. Let's maybe space out the lines a bit more. Maybe I'll do it on the other side too. Just make sure that you are adding a pattern on there that looks like a leaf, but makes your drawing a little bit more exciting, a little bit more doodly. All right, we've got our poppies, we've got our leaves with different doodle patterns. The last thing I need to teach you is how to make a poppy bulb. So this is just before it blooms and it's all curled up still. So it's actually pretty simple. I'm going to start with a stem, and a stem can go any direction. I'm kind of making it curl this way. Good. So I've got my stem, and then I'm going to make a circle on the end. This is where all the petals are curled up in right now. So I also am going to add maybe some curved lines on the outside. And then I'm going to show a little bit of texture on the bottom, like some of the petals are starting to stick out. I'm going to make a couple of straight lines coming out. If you want to add little circles, you could. Let's try to make another bulb. Let's make this one, maybe this one will pop up this way. There's my stem, then a circle or oval, lines going down to my stem, then a couple popping out of the top like it's just about to bloom. We are going to use all of these doodles to make the composition for our Remembrance Day wreath. So keep this close by so you can look back and remember to have lots of variety, which means we don't want all of our poppies to be this type of poppy. Make a couple sideways or upside down. Make a couple that haven't bloomed yet. Use different types of leaves. This will make your wreath more interesting. So I've got my good copy piece of paper and a pencil. And I'm putting my paper in portrait orientation, but it doesn't really matter. You can kind of choose. We're going to be making our arch right in the middle of our page. And then you can even cut it out at the end if you'd like. Now, I highly recommend finding something that is round, that doesn't go over the edges of your page to trace. So this could be a bowl that you have in your kitchen, or a plate, or a container. If you don't have something to trace, you can do what I'm doing, which is eyeball it. But we need a round shape centered on our page. So I want to have enough room to fit about 2 or 3 fingers on either side of my circle. This circle is just to guide my drawing. I'm not going to be actually outlining this with my Sharpie. I'm just going to use this circle to add all of my fun poppy doodles to make my wreath. Okay, now you guys should continue working in pencil, but I'm going to switch to marker just so you can see it on the camera. But always work in pencil first. At the end, then you can go over your pencil drawings with a Sharpie or a marker. So I'm going to start with making my front-facing poppies. And for variety, I don't want them all to be in the same spot, so I'm going to pick a couple spots on my wreath to draw a poppy like that. And you can do the same. Draw maybe about 3 or 4 poppies, just like this. Spread them out. We don't want them all to be right beside each other. That is called variety. Variety makes our pictures a lot more interesting. You could even change the size of your poppies. That first one was a little bit bigger. This one's a bit smaller. Maybe I can make the petals look a little bit more unique on each one. But I want to keep in mind that I want it to still look like a poppy. I don't want it to be just any flower. The poppy is a really important symbol for Remembrance Day. Take a look at how big my poppies are. They fit nice and neat on my wreath. I don't want to make them too big because I want room for all my other details. But if I make them too small, then it will take forever to outline and paint or color. All right, so now I've got some front-facing poppies. Let's add a couple maybe sideways or facing up or facing down poppies. Maybe I'll make one facing this way. So I'll start with that rounded shape. 3 bumps for the leaves. Add my bulb. And I'll wait to add my stems until the end because I'm not sure where I want my leaves to go first. So I'll add leaves, and then the last thing I'll do is add my stems. Now we can add our leaves. So remember, use lots of different shapes of leaves, use different designs and patterns of leaves. Make this unique. Try to stick them on our circle that we drew. That way at the end, this will all be arranged like a big circle wreath. And you don't need to draw the same design I'm drawing. You can get creative and draw it however you would like. If I'm going too fast, pause the video and create your own work of art. The trick to doodle art to make it look nice and neat is to take your time. Sometimes kids rush through doodle art and then their lines look so messy, they all end at different spots, and then they think, why doesn't my work of art look nice like the other ones? Because you rush through, so take your time. Go slowly. All right, you can see that my circle is slowly getting filled in by all of these flowers and leaves. The last thing I'm going to add are those buds and our stems for our flowers. So same thing, spread them out. Look where you have white spaces. Like I've got a white space here. I think that'd be a good spot for a bud. So maybe I'll make my stem to this flower first, and maybe I'll make the bud come from here. So keep going until you think your composition is even and distributed and filled in. This is a really tricky skill for a lot of artists. You want to make sure it's nice and round like a wreath, fill in white spaces if you see any, and spread out some of your shapes. This might take a couple tries until you get a composition that you like. So don't worry if it doesn't look perfect. Grab another piece of paper and try again. When you're ready to add your word or message, the first thing you're going to do is lightly draw a straight line, splitting your wreath in half. This is so light because you're going to erase it after. So don't push hard on your pencil. Keep it super light. This is just to help us make sure we're writing our message nice and straight. Choose a message that means something to you, something that is meaningful for Remembrance Day. You could write the word remember, or I will remember you, or thank you, or lest we forget. Anything that you'd like. For this one, I think I'm going to write, lest we forget. So you're going to work with your best printing, and your goal is to get it right in the middle of your wreath. If it gets squished to one side, erase and try again. Okay, let's see. Yep, same space on either side. So now I can go over it with my marker. Don't worry if you don't get it on your first try. You might have to try a couple times until you have nice, neat printing that keeps your message in the middle of your wreath. The last step is to add some color. So you can use any materials to color this project. You could use markers, pencil crayons, pastels, wax crayons, paint, anything. I'm going to paint all my poppies a mix of red shades, and you can either just do that, or if you want to go back and add green for the rest, you can do that as well. So you really only need 2 different colors. But the way that we make this picture interesting is we don't just use one shade of red. We're going to use maybe 3 or 4 shades of red. Same with our greens. So I'll show you. I'm going to use watercolor paint just because it's what I have handy. So instead of just putting water to wake up my red, I'm also going to wake up my pink. I'm going to wake up orange. I'm also going to wake up purple. I know it sounds kind of crazy. Realistic poppies are not one shade of red. If the light's facing them, maybe they'll look a little bit brighter. Maybe they'll look a little pinker or a little oranger. If there's a shadow, it might look kind of purpley. So that's why I'm using lots of different shades. So I'll start with just my classic red because overall I want these to look red. I don't want them to look like a bunch of different colors. And I'm going to add some red paint, and you could do this with markers or crayons, a little spot on each poppy. So some I may have painted a little bit more, some a little bit less. So now I'm going to add some highlights. Highlights on a poppy would probably be orange, maybe a warm little shade of red. So I'm going to grab some orange. Now I'm going to add little touches of orange. I don't want my whole poppy to look orange. I want this to look like just maybe a little bit of a highlight. And now I'm going to add some low lights. So this is going to be my pink and maybe even a little tiny touch of purple, not too much. I grab my pink first and get some pink shades of red. And all of your poppies don't need to have the same colors. Some might just have the highlights, some might just have the low lights. It is completely up to you. Okay, I think I'm ready. I'm going to add a tiny bit of purple, not too much. I don't want these to look like purple flowers. Just want them to look like they had a little bit in the shade. So I'm mixing purple with my pink. All right, so you could leave it like that if you'd like and let it dry. Or for this one, I think I'm going to add some green. The other one I left just with pops of red. I think that looks really pretty. But let's see what it looks like if we add some green as well. Same thing, don't just use one shade of green. I'm going to wake up dark green, regular green, and I'm even going to wake up yellow for some highlights on those leaves. All right, I'm going to start with my main color, which is just my regular green. I'll pop that on a couple leaves. Slow and steady to make sure that all of these are staying in the lines.